Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to teach you how to mix the color white in watercolor. Sounds complicated, right? White is just the absence of color, so how are we going to do that? I'll show you. It's actually not as hard as you may think. For example, I mixed all of these colors, I think using just 3 shades. You can use the white of the paper as your white highlights if you so choose. I really like to mix and paint the entire surface area of the flower. So let's just break it down a little bit. Just quickly, I went on a walk through my neighborhood, so I found this reference photo here of this wild iris, and I just think it's beautiful. Naturally, I love all flowers, but I think I'll be able to break it down a little bit more to show you the colors that I'm seeing and where I would place them. And yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it. Let's go. Okay, so quickly I'll show you the materials that I'm gonna use. I have 2 different palettes, 2 very different price points. This one's a Mungyo, I believe it's called, with a wide range of colors. You'll even see that there is already a white in there. We are not using her. And then we're going to also be using my Schmincke palette. You'll also notice there is a white in here. It's opaque. I'll show you the different combinations I choose to use in these since they're a little bit different. And then I'm just gonna use a little, oh, a white flower. That was, you can see I mixed up whites here. I will show you here just my different combinations of white. To learn how to mix all of these different shades of white, I'm gonna use this as my reference photo. This is just a wild iris from my neighborhood. And we'll go through section by section and I'll just show you how I'm choosing and why I'm choosing to mix the colors the way I am. And we'll just kind of break it down little by little. So white is really just a combination of, I think I use about 3 colors. And it's going to lean either warm or cool. So we're kind of just balancing in between the 3 colors that we're using to make white. So my colors that I like to use are yellow ochre, pop it over here. I do some indigo, we'll pop that here. And in this palette, neutral tint. So you see, those aren't white. Those aren't white at all. White requires a lot of water. You want it to be super, super, super diluted. So I'll add a lot of water even here and you'll see how much it lightens it up. So straight out of the pan, yellow ochre, looks like that. When we dilute it, it's just the whisper. Same goes with indigo. And then dilute it. And it's barely visible, but you can see it does tint the paper. And then neutral tint. So those are my 3 colors that I like to use. The yellow will help me bring it more warm, the blue more cool, and the neutral tint will play around in there as well. So let's say we're looking at our reference photo and we want to paint the back curve of that petal. You can see that it's leaning cool toned, so we're gonna definitely play in the blues. These 3 colors I'm going to mix them together. So I will take a little bit of my indigo again, just have a little bit more yellow ochre. You don't want a lot because it'll make it green, but just enough to be interesting. See how it has a slightly greeny tint to it, but it's not straight up green. Neutral tint and indigo together will be if we're really wanting to lean to a more really cool shadow. Yellow ochre and neutral tint will give us our warmer shadow. So individually, they're not that interesting. When you combine them together, they create us a trio of different tones that we can take. We could punch this up a little bit more blue, we can lean it more yellow, we take different combinations that lead us to where we want to go. So if I want, let's say, to make this a little cooler toned, and that was our neutral tint and our indigo combination, I'll just take more of the indigo and less of the neutral tint. And that will bring it bluer. Now remember, this is very dark because I didn't put a lot of water in. So with the more water, it brings it. And where I'd place a color like that would be on that back leaf or that back petal. You can see the front fold of the front 3 petals are leaning a little warmer. They're not quite as cool toned. So that is where I would go into more of my mixture here of the yellow ochre and my neutral tint. And I could even add a little bit of my indigo, which is actually a combo I don't think we've done yet. So let's see how that played out. See, that looks a little too green for me, but it's not bad. I'd even want it more cool toned. While it's still warm, it's definitely leaning cooler. And you can see just by using these 3 base colors that you can create an entire range of shades that you can use for one of your white paintings. Now I'm gonna trade this palette out for my more reasonably priced palette. And it's going to be similar shades that I use. Well, it's actually the exact same shades, except for instead of neutral tint for this one, I'm gonna use a little bit of French gray since I don't have neutral tint. So I'm gonna go in with my indigo, French gray, and yellow ochre. It's a trio of yellow, gray, and blue, basically. So we'll take yellow ochre on its own, indigo, and then French gray. So on its own, yellow ochre, very similar, and watered down. Then we have our indigo. This is indigo watered down. And our French gray. And then watered down. So you can see that's my trio. That'll always be my trio that I go to when I'm painting white, and then just messing around with the combinations of them. Using these 3 colors, you can really see we created a wide range of shades. They lean so differently to one another, but that can come together to create a beautiful white that we're after. I'm just gonna quickly sketch out here the iris, the wild iris that we were referencing, so you can get a better idea of where I would use these colors on a completely fresh flower. If you are interested in how I draw my paintings, the initial sketch, it's not usually actually like this. I'm usually a lot more precise. Let me know and I can show you the techniques that I use and how to sketch accurately for your own reference photos. So there is our rough sketch of the iris in the reference photo. Using our Schmincke palette and the mixes I was talking about, I'm going to show you where I would place each of those different values. So where shall we start? I'll start just on this main petal. So we'll see there's a lot of cool tones leaning here, cool tones, and then I'm going to make that front fold a little bit warmer. We're going to take our indigo and reactivate that, and I would take a little bit of the neutral tint with that, which remember is about that shade. And see, I want it even a little bluer. And you'll see there's like a little ridge in the center of the flower, so we'll paint down. And I'll place most of my color where I want it. And I'm gonna take my brush and blend it to the edges. Same over here, same mix. It's kind of on this edge here. Then I see little folds that I'll add that into, and we'll lightly buff that out. And you can see that's just starting our white of the flower. So I'll even take a little bit more leaning neutral tint because I want to add those nice little lines that I can see. And that's our combo. That's a little bit more neutral tint. And if you notice, it's starting to get a little too heavy-handed while it's still wet. Just make sure to tap it up. I want just the straight up indigo to further enhance those little divots. Now the darkest area is right on the ridge of the petal. So I'm just taking straight up indigo and buffing it out. Where the petal is folding in on itself, it's a little bit warmer to me, not dramatically. So I'm gonna kind of take that, I think it was the combination of the 3 that I made over here. And I'm gonna really water it down because the key thing with white is you cannot remove. So if you go too dark, it's game over. So I'm gonna take a really watered down mix here, place it along the top edge. I'm not making it as realistic as I usually do, where I'm just showing you the essence of where I would place each of these if I was to really progress forward and do this painting. So you could see here we did that combination of the neutral tint and the indigo, then just more straight up indigo, and then the combination of the 3. Since that's dry, you can see back on the farthest back petal, it is very warm. So what I'm gonna do is take my yellow ochre and a touch of neutral tint to, neutral it out, do exactly what it says. I don't want it just to be a straight up color. And I'm going to place her back in that area where it's leaning very warm. Towards the top of that section, it leads a bit cooler in the shadow. So I'm just gonna make sure while it's wet to blend those 2 together. Indigo and some neutral tint. And start it on this back petal up into just straight up, really watered down indigo. So now that that front petal is dry, I'm gonna take some neutral tint mixed with yellow ochre and just further enhance the fold. That is far too much yellow. Dab that off. I want it to lean more neutral tint now. If we want these to live harmoniously, we can even just take a little bit of that combination and place it in different areas on this petal if we see where it can live. So I'm seeing those little folds or those little creases, which I really like that this flower has that detail. And I'm just gonna place it in to keep that color story moving. This big boy is almost all of the cool tones. So it's gonna be more of just indigo and neutral tint. I'll pick up some more indigo. I'm gonna take such a small amount of both those colors, and right where it looks like where it bubbles out and then goes down in, there's the darker crevice. I will just lightly paint that in up to that center vein. Take my clean brush and just blur it out quickly. You know, now that I am looking at it, I actually do see a slight little pocket of warmth under here. So that's gonna be that trio, because I don't want it to be just yellow ochre. I'm gonna, underneath, I'll place that down, picking up just a little bit of the other shade, blurring it out. It's so subtle, that's the thing. Painting with white is just a very subtle, slow build. I'm just trying to show you what the different combinations of mixes can do. It's cooler toned over here. And I'm gonna leave that clear and void of color. And then into the shadow behind this other petal. the darkest. And remember, if you're using, like, let's say the Mungyo palette or something different, this is just gray. It's just a French gray, so neutral tint is my gray. Payne's gray just leans a little too blue for me, so I didn't want that. Under the fold of this petal, I'm gonna also darken that up at the shadow and blur it out. Underneath the yellow fuzzy thing is a warmer shade of white. And then you'll see right down the middle of that reference photo is a pretty defined little vein that I'll place in. I guess the only thing that's left is this purple leads down into a very warm white. So I'll take my yellow ochre and my neutral tint, really watered down, and place it in. And then this edge leans warm, so yellow ochre, neutral, and lay it on right there, leading into our defined crest of neutral. But so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna paint the rest, the purple, that yellow, and the green off camera, and then I'll come back and show you quickly just how it really defines that that is a white flower. And that is the final touches on the white wild iris. You can see that adding in those final details really made the white pop and actually look white, rather than the more bluey gray that it might have looked without the details of like the purples and the yellows and the greens. And just with 3 simple colors, yellow ochre, indigo, and a gray, we were able to make all of the shades we needed to create these white petals here. I hope now you don't feel quite as intimidated if you're going to attempt to paint something white yourself. Just remember, we're using 3 colors, a yellow, a blue, and a gray to create a wide range of mixes for our final piece. We're just focusing on the warm tones versus the cool tones, and that's it. Let's not overcomplicate this. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and just have a really great rest of your day. And I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.